Hello and welcome to the new video. Today we're going to take a look at the Shadow Tyranitar with SmackDown, the Legacy Community Day move in the Open Master League. This Pokemon is going to be able to destroy the Ho-Oh, and after the recent Incinerate buff, Ho-Oh is flooding the Master League currently, so let's take a look if this Pokemon is actually decent or not. We're going to take a little bit of a look at the team here as well, which is going to be the Zacian in the lead, classic elite variant here with Quick Attack, the Wild Charge as well as the Close Combat. This is basically what you always see in the lead, because it's going to be okay against Ho-Oh. We're going to have as a safe swap here our Giratina, which is supposed to get out the Dialga, which is definitely something that I did a lot of times, which is really good for us because, yeah, Dialga is a really tough matchup for our Pokemon in the back, the Tyranitar. But here we're going to be able to, in the first game, just go for the full farmland against the opponent Xerneas. Hopefully they don't get to a Moonblast. It's going to be a little bit tricky. But what you also can see here is that we are running the move Shadow Force, and something that I only really learned during this gameplay here is that Shadow Force is actually doing less damage per energy than not Shadow Claw, than the Dragon Claw here, which is absolutely wild. You know what's also absolutely wild? Shadow Tyranitar. This Pokemon is by far the best Pokemon for me that I played for the Master League, which just was so much fun to play this Pokemon. It was just so much fun. Let's take a look here. We were able to bait the opponent, knock out the Zacian, and also win the entire game just with our Shadow Tyranitar. It was so strong. Next opponent coming up, we're going to have a Mewtwo in the lead. We can swap out eventually or immediately here into Giratina. And again, I have to say, Giratina is the worst Pokemon that I had. Here we're going to be able to just go for the Shadow Force. At this point I didn't know that Shadow Force is actually worse than Dragon Claw, which is kind of sad, but we were able to hit the opponent with this move, which is kind of funny. So we at least saw the animation for it and we can still go for a Dragon Claw. This will not get the shield because I know that they can still survive this one, but if you go up against the Dialga, go for the Dragon Claw instead of the Shadow Force. I'm also most likely going to go get rid of the Shadow Force and go for Ancient Power instead, which is going to give you more coverage against Pokemon like Ho-Oh as well. But I just want to try it out because I just built this Pokemon and it still had the move, so I was like, yeah, okay, just going to try out if this move actually can do something. Still would not recommend you to go for it. Here we're going to go up against the Zacian. This looks really bad for us, right? We have basically a Fairy type against us as a Rock plus Dark type, which also has Close Combat, which is double super effective. That's maybe what you think here, but honestly, Tyranitar was absolutely wild. We're going to be able to shield up this move here, and because it's a close combat, they're going to drop their own defense, which allows us to now survive any kind of move and also just knock them out with a Smackdown. We can see here that the opponent goes back into the Mewtwo. We can go for the Wild Charge, and this game's over. This game is over. We were just able to basically flip switch against a Zacian with our Tyranitar, which is just massive. Next opponent coming up, we're going to have the Reshiram in the lead. I most likely must play this a little bit here. I decided to swap out into my Giratina. Yeah, honestly, I could have stayed in for a little bit longer. They're going to have Crunch here. I should have not shielded the first one because they can get the debuff, but luckily they didn't do it here, which is kind of nice. I can go for a Dragon Claw against them, gonna get them lower. I can go for another Dragon Claw eventually afterwards as well. They go for another Crunch. I can let this move go through as well, and so I'm gonna be able to get the shield from the opponent with this Dragon Claw because I know that they can realign. So it is going to be a little bit of a trickier one. But the only kind of benefit that we have from this one is that we're still going to have our Zacian in the lead, which is going to have a ton of energy. In comes here the Solgaleo. Honestly, Master League is, especially in higher up rankings, which I am in right now, I'm in leaderboard rankings at the current time while recording. You just encounter so many Zygarde plus Solgaleo teams, it's ridiculous. But you know what's also ridiculous? The Tyranitar here being able to farm down the Solgaleo at this point. Gonna get the knockout. Yes, I can go for the Psychic Fangs, but it doesn't really matter. Knock out the Reshiram. And also, in the back is the Ho-Oh lurking. We can go for the Brutal Swing bait, and this is not all. We can also still reach the Stone Edge, and Shadow Tyranitar completely destroyed the opponent. All three Pokemon down from a Tyranitar, and let's move on to the next game. Next opponent coming up, we're going to have a Dialga in the lead. This is going to be a fairly decent lead force. It's exactly what I kind of want to face. I just want to hit a close combat. This is all we kind of want to do here. We just want to hit a close combat. We kind of want to still keep our Zacian a little bit healthy. If we can swap out into our Giratina onto a charge move, I'm pretty happy about this as well. But the opponent decides to swap out into the Mewtwo, allowing us to go into our Tyranitar. And As you know, a lot of Mewtwo are running currently Shadow Ball plus the Psy Strike, and this is exactly what the opponent is doing here as well, allowing us to completely wall them, go for the Brutal Swing, and knock them out. Goodbye Shadow Mewtwo, as Shadow Tyranitar is just going to town. We will see that the opponent swaps back into the Dialga, but even here, we are going to have a resisted fast move, but we're still going to do a ton of damage with it, and also with the Brutal Swing coming in, gonna put them into the deep red health here as well, which is just wild. I can go into my Giratina. I am going to use a shield here on a potential Draco Meteor. They go for an Iron Head though, which is going to be a little bit tricky, but I am going to be able to survive this next incoming Iron Head as well, so it's not going to be too bad. And they're going to have a Kyogre in the back. And of course, if we can go for one Shadow Force before, we can go for a Shadow Force here again, just for a little bit of entertainment, and the opponent is going to let this move go through as well. But again, Dragon Claw is doing more damage compared to the Shadow Force, which is just so ridiculous. Like, honestly, this is the thing as well. I don't think it would hurt, like, Niantic to basically buff the Shadow Force a little bit. Like, just make it so it does more damage total than Dragon Claw. Like, this is all I can ask for. It does not have to be great. It's like such a high energy move anyway. But just make it like worth using, because I feel like having something that's like, I think it's 90 energy that you need to get there, or like 80 energy, I'm not sure about it. But like something that's insanely high in terms of the energy that you need, kind of should be a little bit rewarding, right? Like by right now it's better to go for the Shadow Sneak over the, Shadow Force, which just does not really make too much sense in my opinion. But let's take a look here at this matchup. We're going to have the other Giratina against us, which is going to be a matchup that I'm going to take because I'm just going to let this move go through, and I can now swap out into my Tyranitar and get a huge energy advantage, which is like the cool thing about this team. Like, Tyranitar is like so good against a lot of Pokemon. You see me here using a shield. We are very, very squishy, and actually I didn't even notice this at this point. They're actually running Dragon Pulse, which is really good force to be shielded there, because otherwise this would have done some massive amount of damage. And like this, I can at least go for some Brutal Swings here, but sadly they're going to have a hard answer in the back here with the Groudon. I can still go for Close Combat if I want to, and I've decided to go for a shield here, I think, with my Zacian, because I go for the Precious Blade here. I have to go for the Close Combat, and I catch perfectly onto the Dialga. Honestly, like, there was not a lot that I can do about it anyway. Like, the opponent would have been always able to basically catch a move there, because, I was still forced to go for a charge move. They would have been able to go for an Iron Head otherwise. And so it comes down, can our Tyranitar still do something here? Sadly not, because the opponent goes for the Fire Punch bait, which was a smart decision by them. And actually gets the knockout there against the Zacian, which was super unfortunate, but good game to the opponent. Let's move on to the next game. Next opponent coming through, we're going to have here the Ho-Oh in the lead. This Pokemon is not going to appreciate the Wild Charge from our Zacian, so that's exactly what we're going to go for. And what we can do afterwards is either swap immediately or go for 2 more fast moves and then swap out into the Giratina. In comes a Shadow Tyranitar, which is kind of funny because, like, yeah, we are running the same Pokemon. The opponent actually has nearly a hundo most likely, because, like, I'm missing like 3 IV points basically, and I'm 16 below them. So, like, they're definitely having a really, really good Pokemon there. I don't think it's a hundo. I think hundo is a little bit higher than this still, but it is definitely a very nice IV Tyranitar. Doesn't really matter to me though, because I can just go for the Dragon Claw, going to be able to use another shield here afterwards, and I can realign, because this Pokemon is gonna go down here, and we are gonna get a ton of energy, but they decide to swap out into the Reshiram. And you know what time it is? It is time for our Zacian first, because I kind of want to get rid of their shield first, and I kind of want to get them a little bit lower. I know that Tyranitar is insanely strong against the opponent's team, and here, as you can see, I can now smack them down. They're easily in like 2 smackdown range, which is kind of nice, and I will have a decent timing with my Tyranitar. Getting the first KO here already. Let's see what's coming in next. It's going to be the Ho-Oh. I'm totally okay with that. I can resist the charge move from the opponent. But they have a ton of energy stored here, which makes it a little bit awkward, because they're also gonna get the debuff. But I can go for a charge move still. And what I'm going to do next is I'm just going to stay in here, let the opponent throw, and I still think I'm going to be fine here, because I still have my Giratina in the back. I can knock out the Ho-Oh with a Dragon Claw because they're double debuffed, and so this is going to be a good game, and we're going to be able to win this game against the opponent Shadow Tyranitar. Next opponent coming in, we're going to have a Dialga here against us in the lead, which is not going to be ideal in general, but it's going to be okay though, because we can still go for the Close Combat, and again, I just need to get some damage onto them. I don't care really when this is going to happen, but I need to get some damage onto them. And here we will see that the opponent is going to make a great play. like, I decided to go for the close combat there already. It went still for an extra fast move, and so they can swap out into the Giratina, which is really awkward, but at least we're going to still have our own Tyranitar, and Tyranitar does not really care too much in the one-shot scenario about the Giratina, as they can go for the smackdown, as we can go for the super effective brutal swing against the opponent, stab, shadow bonus as well, going to do a ton of damage. They can still reach one more Dragon Claw, but that's basically it for them, as they can just go ahead and go for the full farm down against the opponent, smacking them down. In comes again, most likely their lead of the... No, never mind. They're going to go into the Kyogre, which is going to be okay for us. We're going to have a great answer for this Pokemon in the back, but I decided to swap out into my Zacian instead, because I know that I'm going to be fine with my Giratina as well still, so we're going to be in a decent spot here. They are still going to be forced here to throw a charge move, so I decided to let this move go through. And I am now not sure if this was the correct play, and I think it was not the correct play. I should have went and stayed in basically with my lead, and yeah, with my Tyranitar in the back there, and I still think I had a little bit of a better play with this Pokemon then, because I would have been easily able to align my Giratina against the Kyogre and my Zacian against the Dialga, and Zacian would have been able to knock them out in time. And as you can see here, like, my Shadow Force idea was also not ideal. I should have went for Dragon Claw again. Again, at this point I didn't really know that Shadow Force was worse than Dragon Claw when you just look at the damage per energy. So it is sadly going to be a loss here, but this was avoidable if I just played it better. I should have just let my Tyranitar go down. My own mistake, but let's move on into the next game. Next opponent coming in, let's take a look what they're going to run. We're going to have here we're going to have a Shadow variant of the Dragonite in the lead, but we're also going to see here the Ho-Oh coming in. The funny thing is that we're going to be able to just use a shield here if I want to, but I don't even have to. I can just go for the full farm and they get the attack drop again, but they're going to swap out into the Rhyperior. I can go for the Brutal Swing, which is gonna do some decent damage, but they can farm me down afterwards. Shadow Rhyperior here against us. We can swap out into our Giratina and the opponent decides to forfeit already. Next opponent coming through, we're going to have another Ho-Oh, and we're going to try to get a shield advantage here with going for the Wild Charge. They usually shield the first move up, so that's going to be kind of okay for us. As you can see here, they are going to use a shield, and I can swap out again to my Giratina. I can still get a charge move here. I don't really care too much about it. They can go for the Brave Bird if they want to, and they do want to. As we're going to see now, the Xerneas is coming in. I can go for the Shadow Force just to have some fun here, but again, this is not really the ideal move to have. I feel like Ancient Power would have brought like so much more potential to the Giratina. And here I can still actually reach another Dragon Claw. That's going to do a little bit more, I guess, than a Shadow Claw, but it's not going to do way much more. But I just want to get them kind of into range where I can maybe even quick attack them down, which would be really cool, or even smack them down. Let's see what we can do here. I'm going to let this... No, I'm actually going to shield this move up here, which is going to be the Moonblast, and they're going to get the attack drop, which is really sad because of this, they can still go to another charge move, and I'm kind of forced to swap out now afterwards because, yeah, my moves are going to be resisted. But they're going to swap out into the Ho-Oh. I can still go for one more charge move here. It's going to be the Wild Charge, going to get shielded again, which is great. And here we can just smack them down. And the cool thing about the Tyranitar matchup against Dialga is you win the 1-0 shield scenario as well with this Pokemon. So, as you can see here, we're going to be able to just go for a shield, and we just can go for like a Brutal Swing afterwards, force the opponent's Ho-Oh to throw basically immediately. We still have a Wild Charge stored, and so this game is going to be a very easy victory for us, as we can see the opponent swapping back into their Ho-Oh, going for a charge move. Last efforts here, but it does not really work out for them, as I have already the Wild Charge stored. Wild Charge does around like 60% to a Ho-Oh, and so we're going to be able to win this game. Next opponent, going to have a fairly neutral lead here of the Xerneas against the Zacian. Kind of okay for us, unless, like, hopefully they don't get, like, the debuff again with a Moonblast, which happens all the time to me, but I don't think it's going to happen this time around, luckily. So we're going to be able to go for the Wild Charge. I should be able to get a shield advantage here, but let's see if I'm actually going to be able to do that. I can go for another charge move here as well afterwards, which is going to be okay for me. And we're going to get the shield advantage, which is kind of cool. I am going to use another shield here afterwards. Oh, actually, I should have used a shield here, but I didn't. And so I decided to go into my Giratina. The opponent swaps out into the Dialga. And we are now in a tough spot, and I should go for the Dragon Claw again over the Shadow Force. It does not make sense to go for Shadow Force here, especially if they have a shield left. And so basically, again, I could have played this way better if I just knew what I was doing, but I didn't know at this point of time. But now you know, for example, that you should go for the Dragon Claw in neutral scenarios because Shadow Force is just a trash move, sadly. Here we're going to try to go for maybe even a full farm down, but I doubt that I'm going to be able to get there. So I'm going to try to just reach the Brutal Swing and go for the knockout with that, but never mind, I tried to go for the farm down, it doesn't work. And so we're going to lose this battle here, but it's going to be okay, as we can now move on afterwards into the next battle, as we're going to go down from one Moonblast. Next opponent coming in, we're going to have a Ho-Oh in the lead, which is going to be okay for our team. Again, we can go for the Wild Charge. I think this is the battle where I actually went 2 over afterwards, which is also totally okay. You can just go for 2 fast moves here. If your opponent throws, you're going to shield because they have at this point already, after basically at the same time as you're going to throw the Wild Charge, they're going to have the Brave Bird stored. You kind of want to maybe use a shield then there, but here we're going to be able to align our Giratina against the opponent's Dialga. We can still go for a Dragon Claw, but as you can see, it's not going to do crazy much. I tried to basically force a shield by baiting that I have the Shadow Force, but yeah. 2 Dragon Claws coming through here. Gonna get them a little bit lower, but still a little bit awkward because I'm forced to go for a charge move kind of immediately here, and I decided to use a shield as well, hoping that I can sweep endgame as well, still with our Tyranitar in the back. But as we can see here, we can get the knockout. We're gonna see the Togekiss in the back, and this is not going to be a great matchup for us, as we're gonna be forced to go for a Brutal Swing. But if I stayed in there, I think I still actually had a chance trying to go for a Wild Charge first and try to get the shield, because I would have been able to win this game then basically if I got either the shield advantage or the damage onto the Togekiss. But sadly, not able to do that, and so I'm losing this game because I swapped out a little bit too early in my opinion. But let's move on into the next game, as the opponent can now knock me out with just a Brave Bird or Sacred Fire. It's going to be a Brave Bird, and let's move on to the next game. Second to last game, let's take a look at this one. We're going to have a Tyranitar in the lead. Again, as you saw most likely in the battles prior, we're going to see here that this matchup is not as ideal for the Zacian as you might think. And I decided to use a shield here because this might be already the Stone Edge, and if I lose my Zacian early, this would be really, really bad. And it was a Stone Edge, so it was definitely the right call to shield this move up. I can go for 1 close combat, I can overfarm by a little bit, and I most likely should have overfarmed by quite a bit more here at this point. Because, yeah, now I'm going to be forced to swap out. I decided to swap out into my Tyranitar because I didn't want to go into my Giratina, and I get completely hardwalled by a Virizion. So, my only way of coming back from this game basically is trying to go up to 100 energy with my Giratina and basically try to keep it as long as possible. What I should have done here though, because I know that the opponent is still swapped, like locked in here, I should have went for the Shadow Force this time around, because I would have got the opponent low enough that I most likely would be able to farm down afterwards. And like this, I don't really have, like, the opponent can swap out anyway now. We are going to be able to swap out into the Zacian, but I would have been able to just get rid of my energy and kind of just farm up afterwards just freely until like, the opponent would go down. But here I'm going to still use a shield, I think. No, I'm actually not going to use a shield. I'm just decided to go for the Shadow Force against the Lugia to have some fun with this. But it's going to be a little bit of a tough game here, as they're still going to have the Tyranitar with a lot of health left. I can go for 2 Dragon Claws, and I think 2 Dragon Claws plus a fast move damage might be enough, but it's going to be a very, very close one. And they're still going to have the Virizion lurking in the back, which still has a ton of health, so it's going to be a tough one for us. They're going to swap onto the Virizion, which is a smart play, and I cannot really do anything about it, because, yeah, Leaf Blade is going to hurt a little bit. Kind of sad, because I basically battled this matchup here, like this game, with 2 Pokemon, as my Tyranitar went down immediately to the Virizion. But let's move on to the next opponent. Final opponent for today, let's see what they're going to run. They're going to run, of course, the Pokemon that I hate to face. It's going to be the Zygarde. Zygarde is just ridiculous. This Pokemon is just way too broken for the Master League. We see here that I overfarm by quite a bit, and I can still go for a charge move with the close combat. But now I can swap out into my Giratina, and as long as we don't get debuffed twice from Crunch, we should be okay here. First Crunch coming through, gonna get the debuff immediately. Second Crunch is coming through. Gonna get the debuff immediately, and so they can farm me all the way down. Otherwise, I would have been able to reach 2 Dragon Claws for the shield, have a way better time, but no, because of 2 debuffs back to back from Crunch, which is around like 9% chance, I think it is just, yeah, going to go down there, because it's kind of like the Moonblast debuff of the video as well. So, like, we're going to not be able to knock out the opponent here either, because the Zacian is failing to get the knockout here. I can still go for 1 fast move. Let's see what they're going to have in the back. Most likely Solgaleo. No, it's going to be a Mewtwo. This is going to be okay, as the opponent went for 1 fast move. I could have stayed in for a little bit and maybe try to catch, but yeah, basically this game is over at this point. I can try to go for still a Brutal Swing or something like this, but I doubt that this is going to work out well for me. They're going to go for the close combat. I can still go for the Brutal Swing though. Maybe I can still reach another one afterwards, but is this enough now? The opponent is double debuffed. We are Shadow though, we have a ton of attack, and also we're going to have a stab move here, and yes, it is enough. And like this, the opponent's Mewtwo is going to be stuck against our Tyranitar, and Tyranitar is saving the day again. It is absolutely wild how strong this Pokemon was. Hopefully you enjoyed this video today. If you did, feel free to leave a like. There's going to be on the screen right now the team that I used to get up to veterans, so definitely check this video out as well, and I'll see you then. Bye bye.